Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Medlock Post radio show. I'm your host, Richard G. Medlock. This is where we educate, entertain, enlighten, and empower. Today is the 29th of July, 1742. You're saying, wow, what did he say? It's July 29th, 2022. And today's episode is recession, education, or what? All right. Recession, education, or what? This is what we're dealing with here, folks. There's a lot of things going on. The views and opinions on the Medlock Post radio show are the views and opinions of the host. They are not necessarily the views and opinions of Spreaker.com, its corporations, affiliates, or any other podcast streaming services that we stream on. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 29th of July, the Medlock Post. Happy to have you with us. Thank you for your support. Thank you for the messages that you're sending. Some information, matter of fact, a couple of things I'm going to refer to on today that you sent. And, as a matter of fact, I think there's 3 of them. And we're just moving on. People are getting more and more interested in what's going on in the world. So I guess I should have said, instead of 1742, I should have said 1917. Because there was an event that happened in France on this date in 1917, and that was the French government found Mata Hari guilty of spying. She is the famous exotic dancer spy from World War I, was a German spy, and the French government found her guilty on this date. And of course, she was later put to death. Interesting story. If you get some time, go look it up. It's a good piece of history to look at. It's a lot of fun. Nothing fancy about it. All right. Aristotle said, quote, "We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, therefore, is not an act, but a habit," unquote. And we can turn that around and say failure is a habit, because that's what's going on with the Biden administration. Total failure when it comes to the Constitution, and when it comes to freedom, and when it comes to capitalism or free market trade. Now, in our eyes, it's failing. In their eyes, they would take this quote by Aristotle and say, yay, we're the excellent ones. Because their goals and their plans to destroy America are succeeding. So they think it's excellence. But we know better, don't we, ladies and gentlemen? Here are some things from Thomas Paine. That's more than one quote. It says, quote, "Common sense will tell us that the power which hath endeavored to subdue us is of all others the most improper to defend us." So this globalism, the socialism, the totalitarianism that's out there trying to subdue us into their will, it's the most improper to defend us. They're not watching out for us. They're watching out for their power, ladies and gentlemen. Their power. Thomas Paine, in another quote, said, "A long habit of not thinking a thing wrong gives it a superficial appearance of being right, and raises at first a formidable outcry in defense of custom. But the tumult soon subsides. Time makes more converts than reason. These quotes I'm reading today are very appropriate after what's been going on in the last week and the economic reports from yesterday. All last week and up until yesterday, what did we hear from the White House, from Joe Biden, from Janet Yellen, and all these other people, all these so-called excellent experts? Oh, we're not in a recession. 2 quarters of negative growth or shrinking of the economy. No, that's not a recession. We're not in a recession. No problem. Just keep moving. Just keep doing what you're doing. Well, the shoe dropped yesterday, and the second quarter GDP was minus 0.9%. First quarter was minus 1.6%. So the shoe dropped. And again, the White House and the media are all out there. Oh, no, we got to look at the definition of a recession. We need to, what you're seeing from history is not true today. Well, tell that to us out here struggling with inflation, going to the gas station, putting in 10 gallons of gas, and it costs $45. Tell that to moms and dads that are trying to feed their kids and are having to not buy certain treats so their kids can eat. This is what we're looking at, folks. So don't tell us we're not in a recession. But what are the Democrat socialists celebrating today? Yesterday and today. The chip maker subsidy bill passed the Senate, and then last night, this is yesterday, then last night it passed the House of Representatives. It is now a bill. Biden will sign it. 27 Republican socialists voted for this bill in the House. 17 GOP socialists in the Senate voted for this socialist bill. All right. In all the news today, yesterday and today, this $52 billion bill. Folks, it started out as a $52 billion bill, subsidy to the chip maker industry, the Intel industry, that doesn't need it. They don't need this. It ended up a 1,000-page bill, which was, things were put in after the procedural vote to take it out of the filibuster. Then they added all this stuff to it. But one thing they took out of it, the original bill was going to prohibit China, it's called the anti-China section, prohibit China, anybody from China, working with these companies and having access to this technology and not being able to take it back to China, and they steal it, which they've been doing for umpteen years. Our technology, left and right. They took that out. Schumer pulled it at the last minute. So the Chinese have full, unfettered access to this technology for everything. Talking about being a slave to somebody, the Democratic Socialists and GOP Socialists are slaves to China. Now, back to the bill. This 1,000-page bonkers of a bill, which it wasn't even needed, but it was a disguise, a Trojan horse, if you want to call it that, to put in to this bill green energy socialist policies. under the guise of supporting, just basic green energy, or supporting the chip makers in helping fight climate change. So this $52 billion bill ended up a $280 billion bill, with most of the money, about $200 billion, going to green energy. They slid this in and they worded it in such a way, it's kind of like Obamacare was, the Affordable Care Act. It's a structure. It creates a structure without details, so they can go do whatever they want to do with it. Whatever they want to do with it. This is called socialism, communism, totalitarianism, Marxism, whatever you want to call it. And we've let Congress get away with this for years and years and years. So that's passed. The other bill, big news yesterday, Joe Manchin finally gets what he wants from the Democratic Socialist, so he's going to sign off on this new Build Back Better bill. See, that's how Joe Manchin works. Yeah, he's stopped a few things down the way, but he's played that game and played that game, and he'll, I'm not going to support that. Oh, Mr. Manchin, what do you want? What do you want? He tells them what he wants. They give it to him. He supports the bill. Same thing here. Somewhere he's getting what he wants. But this bill will be very damaging to the state of West Virginia that he's supposed to represent. It's now called the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022. More government spending will not bring down inflation. It has caused the inflation in the last 18 months. Been part of the cause. So there's almost $400 billion in this bill for green energy. Add on top of that the $200 billion, or approximately that, in the chip maker subsidy bill. So there's $600 billion going to green energy that could not get passed on its own. So the Democratic Socialists and the GOP Socialists are putting a piecemeal in this bill, a little piecemeal in that bill, and a little piece of green energy bill over here, and climate change over here. They're sneaking them in all these little bills, and all of a sudden they're going to have the whole big socialist conglomeration of a climate change totalitarianism. That is what's happening in our government. And it's sad. And you and I are the ones that are paying the price. They don't have all this money that they're putting in these bills. They don't have it. They're going to have to print it. They don't have this money. So this Inflation Reduction Act looks like it's going to pass. The House will pass it. I'm telling you, I've been telling you, they're ramming everything they can into this socialist movement before November. The sad thing is, they're bringing some GOP socialists over to their side. And folks, if you're a Republican and you start working and voting for these Democratic socialist bills, you are now a socialist. And go back and think, last week I talked about the 17th Amendment. There's the 19th principle of the Constitution, the balance of power, and the 17th Amendment took that power away from the states. We're seeing that implode on us. The states are losing more and more rights. They're built in to these bills. The 10th Amendment is being thrown out the window through legislation that the senators should be voting against. They should be protecting states' rights, and they're not doing it. And we're having anyway. It sounds like we've got to go to a break, and we will do that. I will calm down a little bit, or try to, and then we'll come back. All right, we are back. This is the Medlock Post radio show. This is your host, Richard G. Medlock. All right, let's get into this. What I'd like to do now is, it's interesting, the number of articles and other things that are coming out about education in America. And what has happened to it and what it needs. And the other day, when I recorded on the 27th of July, it was episode 28, part 2 of the American education system, someone sent me that afternoon, as a matter of fact it was a cousin, sent me a recording from Providence Today, Providence Forum, and it was titled, When Schools Changed. And I'm going to play that to you. It's about 6 minutes. And the narrator is Jerry Newcomb, the executive director of Providence Today. You'll hear the voice of the Honorable Darrell White, a retired judge, founder of Retired Judges of America. Dennis Prager of Prager University. I'm sure everybody's familiar with him. David Gibbs III, National Center for Law and Liberty. Eric McTaxis, author of If You Can Keep It, a book about the Constitution and so forth. So it's about 6 minutes. So let's get this going. There's a little bit of music at the start. So here we go. This is Providence Today, When Schools Changed.
The history of American education is quite remarkable. In the early days, back when literacy was widespread, education was church-based, and the Bible, in one form or another, was the chief textbook. But in the 1900s, much of this changed, to the point where the Scriptures, the book that gave birth to Harvard, Yale, and Princeton, was effectively banned from American education. And the results have been predictable.
Earl Warren was the governor of California, and he was appointed to the Supreme Court. He was never a judge in his whole life, but he became the head of the most liberal court that we've probably ever known in our lifetime anyway. And during that period of time, we had the Bible removed from school. We had prayer removed from school.
In the early 1960s and earlier, going back to colonial times, schools opened in prayer.
In 1962, there was a case called Engel versus Vitale that came out of a New York Board of Regents prayer that was a very tepid prayer, asked God's blessing on ourselves, our parents, our teachers, and our country. Amen. And that was struck down by the United States Supreme Court. They nullified that prayer, and in the following year, devotional reading of the Bible in a case called Abington versus Shemp, that was nullified as well.
The Supreme Court changed America more with the 1962 decision that prayer in school was unconstitutional. That was the decision that began the end of America as we knew it. It's as universal a prayer and non-denominational as you could have. And as I often point out, within one generation, kids went from blessing their teachers to cursing their teachers.
A shocking example of where the Supreme Court decides when religion is okay and when it's not okay is the 1980 case. It's called Stone versus Graham, but it was a Ten Commandments case.
This decision was made in the High Court building, where depictions of Moses and the Ten Commandments can be seen on the outside and inside.
The court, and I'm paraphrasing here, but the court said essentially, if the children are exposed to the Ten Commandments, they might actually read them and adopt them and follow them. Now, shockingly, we live in a day where, unfortunately, school shootings and other things dominate our news at levels that are heartbreaking. And I think many American citizens would disagree with the Supreme Court and say, you know what, we would like to see some principles and some values where the young people of our nation would be taught that there is a right, there is a wrong, that thou shalt not kill.
America's founders did not intend for this nation to be a secular one. In fact, the word secularism did not exist until 1851, when George Jacob Holyoake coined the word to take the place of atheist, infidel, or skeptic in a manner that was not as unappealing as those words.
The founders would say, look, if you want to talk about liberty, you want to talk about freedom, you have to talk about virtue. You have to figure out a way to talk about virtue, honor, those things that they knew were inextricably intertwined with liberties. This is something that we have ceased to teach, really, for probably about 50 years. Since I've been in school, we don't teach this anymore.
The biggest problem that we face is that we have forgotten God. Secular humanism has taken over, and what we need to do is repent. Our founders were not atheists. They pledged their lives, their fortune, their sacred honor on behalf of themselves, but also on behalf of posterity. That's us and our grandchildren, and we hold the truths of the Constitution and the sacred guarantees that are ours as Americans. We hold them not as owners, but in trust. We are trustees for the next generation.
How far does the secularism go today? When the Supreme Court ruled that the Ten Commandments were not allowed to be posted in the schools, they said that if they were, the children might read them, meditate on them, venerate them, and obey them. When they made that ruling, there were no school shootings. The Bible gave birth to American education, and lately, American education has treated the Bible as if it were like asbestos, to paraphrase one of the Christian attorneys of today, fighting for religious freedom. America needs a true spiritual revival. For Providence Forum, I'm Jerry Newcomb.
All righty. Interesting. And the things that we have been saying, not only about education, but other things, the Founding Fathers, the Constitution, liberty, freedom, is based on virtue and morality and honor. Their three things was religion, morality, and knowledge. And they encompassed, when I said the other day that the government in the beginning printed Bibles to put into the schools, not to convert anybody to a specific religion, but to expose them to learn what good behavior is, what morality is, and what virtue is. Because they knew that was important to a vibrant, free society. So the Providence Forum, Providence Today, has echoed what we have been saying all along, and we're getting a lot of support. Now here they're talking about virtue and morals and how those things were based. Oh, you can't teach them in school. Leads us right into Annie Holmquist of Intellectual Takeout, who wrote this article Wednesday, or it was published Wednesday or Tuesday. A teacher says students crave ethics instruction. From the article from Annie Holmquist, she said, high school English teacher Paul Barnwell made two interesting observations yesterday in The Atlantic. And that's a liberal publication, folks. The first was that his students have no moral compass. Barnwell discovered this when discussing various ethics issues with his class. His students were, he found, quite oblivious to internationally and historically accepted values of moral living. Is that a shock to anybody? No. But let me tell you where the responsibility lies in teaching those morals and those values. It is with the parents, not the school district. The school district shouldn't be teaching sex education. This is part of the plan, of the communist plan, to take power away, to take the kids away from those mean, evil parents and teach them things that aren't good. It's part of that plan. This is what's happened in our schools. But so the parents just said, "Oh, I don't have to worry about it." But what's happened over the years is these parents were taught this when they were in school. They weren't exposed to values. Parents tried, but then things just started going downhill, and boom, here we are today. So you got parents that don't care, and they don't care what happens to their kids. The government will take care of them. They're at school all day. I don't have to worry about them. School's going to feed them. It's not my responsibility. And a lot of parents have gone down that road. And that's why we have such an alarming abortion situation in our country today. Because they're not taught anywhere about personal responsibility. Back to Annie Holmquist. But perhaps such a finding should not be surprising given that schools are increasingly plagued by disrespectful and less than virtuous student and the teacher behavior. Folks, I can tell you this is everywhere. I have friends with kids in school and they're pulling their kids out because they go talk to the administrators. Administrators say, "Oh, our hands are tied. We can't do anything about the gangs or the bullies or anything. We can't do anything." Wow. How about that, folks? Yeah, and school administrators telling you that they cannot do anything. Well, folks, time for a break. When we get back, we'll go into the second observation of English teacher Paul Barnwell. We'll be right back. And it looks like we're back. This is the Medlock Post radio show. This is Richard Medlock, your host. This is where we educate, entertain, enlighten, and empower. Thank you for being with us. This is July 29th, 2022. We're talking about an article from Annie Holmquist of Intellectual Takeout. I've got another article. Well, yeah, I got all kind of stuff today, folks. We did. But anyway, an English teacher, Paul Barnwell, said there were two interesting observations. The first one we were talking about before the break. His students have no moral compass. All right, so the second observation was slightly more surprising. According to Barnwell, his students did not find discussions about ethics, morality, virtue, or character dull or boring. Instead, they were hungry for it. And this was his quote. Do you think you should discuss morality and ethics more often in school? I asked the class. The vast majority of heads nodded in agreement. Engaging in this type of discourse, it seemed, was a mostly foreign concept for the kids. A foreign concept. Remember the other day, let me finish his quote and I'll go. As my students seem to crave more meaningful discussions and instruction relating to character, morality, and ethics, it struck me how invisible these issues have become in many schools. By omission, are U.S. schools teaching their students that character, morality, and ethics aren't important in becoming productive, successful citizens? Unquote. Folks, that is a fascinating question. Do the powers that be want schools producing productive, successful citizens? Well, there's a big case for that where the question is yes. Does it want them being taught character, morality, and ethics? No. Now, let me make this clear. Not every school is bad. There are great teachers out there. I know a lot of them. But their hands get tied by the school's regulations, by the union's regulations, by federal regulations. Their hands get tied. It's sad. All right, back to this article by Annie Holmquist. As Barnwell goes on to briefly note, straying away from teaching character and morality in our nation's schools is contrary to the vision which the American founders had for education. Amen. Now, this is what the recording at Providence today was talking about. It's what we've been talking about. She continues, Ben Franklin is a prime example of this. In 1749, he encouraged Pennsylvania's early schools to continually discuss advantages and disadvantages of such character qualities as temperance, order, frugality, industry, perseverance, and so on. Did they teach any of that in schools today? Very little of it. Now I'm going to do a show down the road. Ben Franklin had 12 guidelines that helped him in life, and we'll do a show on those. They're quite fascinating. And temperance and order and frugality and industry and perseverance is part of those. And George Washington maintained that a good academic education alone could not enable national morality to continue. Furthermore, Thomas Jefferson noted that virtue is the true scope of all academic emulation. Virtue, morality, obeying the Ten Commandments, obeying your parents, obeying the law. These were things that was the essence, the foundation, the glue to hold societies together with liberty and freedom. Back to Annie Holmquist. As early as 1944, C.S. Lewis referenced this drift away from teaching students the objective truths of ethical morality in school. Such a trend, Lewis wrote, would eventually cause the destruction of the society which accepts it. Amen, folks. It did or has led to a destruction of a lot of society as we accepted it. Now, in my last, I can't remember which one I talked about, this Professor Santos at Yale did the study, Psychology and the Good Life. And one fourth of the undergrad students signed up for this course, and 64 million people watched it on podcast. People are yearning for good things. And that's what this is about. Where's the moral compass from the school system? Is there a moral compass in the administrators? I don't know. We've got some things to look at as we get to them to answer some of these questions. So, answering questions and moving on. Let's go ahead. This is an article by Nicolene Peck. It was written July 24th, 2022. And it's from the Meridian magazine. It's a great magazine. There's a lot of great stuff out there if you just look for it. Get away from the mainstream media. They lie to us. They lie to us. And I didn't save that one thing, did I? Let's see. Did I lose that? I did. Okay. I'll do it on the next episode. I put something in there and then I didn't save it. My bad. But it'll wait. Okay. It's about how we're being lied to by the media. But anyway, the title of her article, it's a great article. I loved it. And we're not going to go through the whole thing. We don't have time. Might school choice initiatives be causing forgetfulness in parents? Well, I'm skipped down to about the middle of her writings. And she goes in here, she says, the word choice. From Nicolene Peck here, the word choice. Words can be so misleading. The word choice has historically caused confusion about policy, and it's no different now. After fighting against and advocating for a voluminous amount of bills in my years doing family advocacy work, I've come to find out that most people don't even read bills. It's sad to say, but even the legislators don't always read the bills. Boy, that's true. Back to Nicolene. Before you call them lazy in your mind, recognize that there are way too many bills drafted to humanly remember and scrutinize all of them. That's part of that chaos. Just like these two bills I talked about at the beginning of the show. It's chaos. All right. This means that most legislators base their decisions about bills off conversations, friendships, and titles. And I'm going to add here, Nicolene, power. Back to Nicolene. This is why the title of a bill can sometimes change multiple times during the bill's life. Great. Absolutely. Remember now it's the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022 instead of the Build Back Better bill? Build Back Better, everybody knows that's not happening. It should be Tear Down Faster. Should be the name of the bills. When people see a topic, back to Nicolene, when people see a topic or bill title called school choice or something similar, they feel that it must be a good thing because it has a very liberating word in it, choice. Let's not be myopic. Promises for free money and choices could be just one piece of a bigger puzzle and could cause us to not see the full picture. When we get excited about one piece of a puzzle, it can be easy to forget the picture we are trying to create. Amen, Nicolene Peck in Meridian magazine. Now, I'm not through with her. The picture continues. But we get so focused, they want to take care of this and they want to take care of that. No, they don't. Name one thing the government has solved or got rid of in the last 200 years. Name one program that has done what they told us it was going to do. The answer is zero. See, they don't tell us that the rich people are going to keep getting richer. The politicians are going to get more power. They don't tell us that. Because if they told us that, we'd vote them out of office. So they lie to us. Yeah, yay, break time, okay? Break time, and then we'll come back to Nicolene Peck's piece about choice. And Nicolene Peck's article, might school choice initiatives be causing forgetfulness in parents? The picture of education Nicolene talks about. What is the picture of education? Here we go back to the founding fathers, folks. Continuing, Thomas Jefferson, a lifelong proponent of education for all people, pictured a society where all people could read, discuss, write, and contract business. He saw people owning land and improving society because of their industry and education. I think we heard those words earlier, okay, from the teacher Paul Barnwell. Back to the article. This is why he hoped for more colleges and quality public education. On his headstone, he wanted to be remembered more for founding the University of Virginia than for writing the Declaration of Independence. He saw education as the main factor of freedom. Yes, Nicolene Peck, you hit the nail on the head. You see how all of a sudden there's all these articles talking about education, what it should be, what's happened, why our kids don't know anything, why they think or don't think the way they do, because they weren't taught to think. Thomas Jefferson was more concerned about education in America. Yeah, the Declaration was great, but that's history. That got us to where we are now. Let's take advantage of it. But we've let that slip, folks. We've let it slip. Back to the article. Interestingly enough, Adolf Hitler and Mao also saw education as power. You see where she's going with this? Back to Nicolene. They worked to create youth movements and to reprogram children in schools to follow their new social orders. Mao and Hitler had pictures of education too, but their pictures led to societal transformation and control, not freedom. Whoever controls the words and education controls the society and the future. Historically, parents who teach their children to speak and read have been the key influencers in culture and education. But as we've shifted our focus toward peers, media, and outside learning facilities, parents don't always get to sculpt society with the same power they once had. What did parents from years gone by who started governments, let me start that over. What did parents from years gone by who started movements like private schools and homeschools know that we might be forgetting? Great question, Nicolene Peck. So she's going back, and she's talking about and asking the same questions that we've been talking about, that Paul Barnwell and Annie Holmquist was talking about, that Jeff Minnick was talking about, Daniel Latier is talking about, and Providence Today is talking about, and the Medlock Post has been talking about. Parents are being taken out of the picture on purpose. They want to control the masses. And you do that by bad, false education. Drumming in their heads, America is bad, which Howard Zinn wrote in the History of the United States, was to make people mad at America. And it succeeded. They don't want to be Americans. They don't want to be part of the Constitution. They don't want to be part of freedom. And we're seeing the results of all of that in our society. And it's a sad state. And we need to address it and go after it. And we need to stop it. Stand up and speak up. And it's happening. We talked about Moms for Liberty the other day, going around the country, training parents how to stop these school boards, get on the school board, or other community elected officials. This is what we have to do. We have to take back America, and we have to sustain the values and principles of the Constitution. And only we, the people, can do that. Nobody else. Washington, D.C. is lost. Just look at what they're doing. Look at the two bills they're getting ready to pass, the total socialistic bills to take our liberties and freedoms away. That's what we're fighting. It's in the schools, it's in corporations, it's in the government. And we need to stand up to it. It's got to stop. The lies of the media, the lies of the politicians, of the government. It's just unbelievable. You know the old saying, when is a politician lying? Every time his lips move? Yeah. And I'm talking about both parties. They're no good. They're not good for you, they're not good for me, they're not good for our family, and they're not good for America. They want to destroy the Constitution, and they're doing a darn good job of it, and we've got to stop it. Crazy. All right, folks. I love America. I love the Constitution. And it is the most valuable thing other than fighting for our God and our religion that we can fight for. God wants his children to be free. That's part of his plan for us. We have to make our own decisions. We have to take responsibility for what we do with our lives and suffer the consequences when we do the bad things. And there are good consequences too from doing good things. It's the nature of it. Whoa. Okay, ladies and gentlemen. I think we're going to, I've got, this is going to have to be at another time. I'm going to skip this one thing. It's a study from Harvard, and we'll have to get back to that. And it's a study of how the government used Supreme Court decisions and other regulations to take over control of the schools, which they have no authority to do. It's not in the Constitution. If it's not in the Constitution given to the federal government, it's the states to do it. And the federal government took it away from them. We'll talk about how they did that maybe next time. Let me finish with a couple of quotes. You know me and my quotes. Booker T. Washington, we talked about him on Wednesday, was a great individual. Loved freedom, born as a slave, overcame it, self-taught, became educated, started a university. But he was also a philosopher. He was an educator, reformer, and the most influential black leader of his time, 1856 to 1915. I think the only most influential black leader would be Martin Luther King Jr. I can put those two together. But this is what Booker T. Washington wanted to achieve. He urged blacks to accept discrimination for the time being and concentrate on elevating themselves through hard work and material prosperity. So he said, forget your hardship, forget people looking at you, down at you, forget that. Go do what you're supposed to do as a human being. Develop your character. Go out there and work hard. You can own land now. You can get educated. Go do it. Use your talents to produce. And many, many blacks have done that. What we look at on the media is the minority of the minority. Thomas Sowell, another black educator. Quote, one of the painful signs of years of dumbed-down education is how many people are unable to make a coherent argument. They can vent their emotions, question other people's motives, make bold assertions, repeat slogans, anything except reason, unquote. And let's add to that common sense. They are doing what they're told to do. They can't critically think. Ladies and gentlemen, okay, we are at the end of the show today. Thank you for being here. Have a great weekend. And that, folks, is the Medlock Post for today. May God bless America.